thanks for what you said at Vespers the other night. I was so, what you said about sailing gave me such a different idea of
Oh,
of who you are. Like if sailing kind of taking you away from all the stuff you do,
right.
you know? So yeah, that was great. And you know,
This
I
is off,
really
right?
got me with the anger too.
Well,
Yeah, and
well, you know what happened that night? I had been so angry, and I kept taking I could feel it. My blood pressure was sky high for days. And then after Vespers, I took it, and it was normal. This is the effect this woman has on me.
yeah, and yeah, there's a little more about that. I have some real strong, I have some real strong opinions about what, you know, with
Yeah, I
but
know it.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
all right, we'll talk. Okay. Oops. We kind of did, but there aren't too many on.
Oh,
Welcome and good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Rachel Tedesco, and I'm the worship leader this morning. I can't say lay worship leader, that means I'm not clergy, but I am retired. I'd like to welcome everyone to First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bridgewater. Oh, I guess I can take my mask off. I've been a member here for at least 13 years, and I serve on the worship committee and on the social justice committee. And what I like most about First Parish, at least this week, is how many people were willing to take a chance and have our Juneteenth celebration here. So I'll say more about that later. And the people who came and pitched in, it was really wonderful. So I will proceed with this script. First Parish Bridgewater is a welcoming congregation. We proudly fly the rainbow flag to symbolize our welcome to people of every description. We have a dynamic religious education program which takes place in the lower parish hall during worship. If you are new to First Parish, we hope you enjoy your visit with us. We encourage you to sign the guest book on the table at the rear of the sanctuary. If you wish to receive our monthly newsletter, please be sure to include your email address. If you're joining us online, you can request to be put on our mailing list at our website or in the chat. We invite you to join us for coffee, snacks, and conversation. And today, I believe we also have a ice cream sundae after the service. And that will be outside in the lower courtyard following the service. Our service this morning is being hosted via Zoom and recorded for Bridgewater Cable TV, but the camera is turned off during the sharing of joys and sorrows. In case of an emergency, please leave the building either through the main sanctuary doors or through the School Street entrance if you need a ramp. You are welcome here. Thank you for joining us. Your presence, whether in person or online, makes a difference. And we do have some announcements that Reverend Jennifer would like to make.
Thank you, Rachel, Reverend Rachel. I wanted to acknowledge it's the last Sunday of the formal church year, and for me, it's the last Sunday of my first full year of congregational ministry and ministry among you. And despite some obstacles at home over the past week, I'm feeling pretty good, and I think that's a good sign to move into the summer. I feel enlivened and energized and happy for a break, but also enthusiastic about ministry. So that says a lot about all of you. I wanted to take a moment in the announcements today because I often will acknowledge contributions to the worship service, but a few folks I feel I haven't acknowledged as much as I ought to have, and that is the people who show up week in and week out behind the scenes for our sound, to record, for Bridgewater Cable Access and for Zoom, to be hosts to our Zoom friends. So I really, really want to acknowledge, I'm going to start with Lori Lesner, who's been hosting on Zoom all year long, and more recently was joined by Beth Manchester Howell, who's sharing in that now. I have to thank Jan Thompson, who's sometimes assisted by AJ Derby, but is just our week after week after week, staffs our camera, runs our camera. And the tireless, steadfast, generous Alan Yabrudi for just manning the tech station. In these challenging times, it's been pretty seamless for me, which is just such a gift. So thanks, and I know David Wilson has helped out with audio and stepped in, I think, on the one occasion when Alan had to only do part from home. So it's a fantastic team, and I needed to lift that up. Which is not to take away from the contributions of our amazing musicians and worship leaders. The other thing I wanted to mention is just that there's a few changes in the order of service because our musician Tony Winters is not able to be here due to some family concerns. So there will not be the song A Million Dreams, unfortunately. It's a beautiful song. We'll hope to get that into worship next year. Denise will be playing a musical response for us. And the postlude will be Summertime by Gershwin from Porgy and Bess, just so you're not confused. And so ends my announcements.
Our chalice lighting this morning is called a chalice, Celebrating Blessings by Reverend Suzelle Lynch. The flame we kindle in the chalice of faith holds blessings of warmth and light and life-giving energy. It shines forth a beacon to guide us all home. It lights up our longings to connect and to share. It possesses the power to shape a world where equity and compassion reign supreme. May this warmth and light and life-giving energy celebrate the blessings we have claimed and help us extend them in hands and hearts that offer these blessings to all. I invite you now to join me in the affirmation of our covenant. The word is up there. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
My opening words for you this morning are a bit more of an opening reflection. And that's because today, June 19th, is a day of several converging observances in our culture. We open the month honoring pride and LGBTQ justice and equity with a moving worship service from our Welcoming Congregation Committee. Today is Juneteenth, which commemorates the day more than 2 months after the end of the Civil War and 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, when enslaved Black Americans in Galveston, Texas, were informed of their freedom. Though it only became an official federal and state holiday, I believe, last year, Juneteenth has been observed and celebrated by Black Americans in Texas and later across the country for decades. Yesterday, First Parish had the honor of hosting and sponsoring the second annual Bridgewater Juneteenth celebration on our grounds, organized by a Black-led coalition of local groups and many of our members, led by Reverend Rachel. I know David Wilson was a big part of it, and many others spent months on the planning and preparations and orchestration of the event. Today is also, of course, Father's Day, the day when we recognize the significance of the role of fatherhood in our culture and honor individual fathers and father figures in our own lives and families. Lastly, today is the final service of the church year before we shift to the more relaxed lay-led services of summer and a slower pace of church life for a little while. It's a lot to wrap our heads and hearts around in a single service, at least for me. The common thread I've arrived at is how this day, with all its complexity, illuminates the tension that comes with the passage of time. Time. We don't often think about the fact that we are people who live with this concept of time, that perhaps there could have been another possibility, and yet, no, we are stuck with this passage of time, the turning of seasons. Pride and Juneteenth remind us of the ongoing struggles for liberation, for freedom and democracy and justice, struggles over time, struggles that have and will continue to play out over generations. Justice and liberation are not fully realized. Freedom is not fully won. Democracy is not secure. We must build on the gains of the past and overcome the losses of the present with the hope that we, in our time, may move the needle forward for the future. Father's Day reminds us that we live in generational relationship. In essence, we are all the parents and grandparents and great-great-grandparents of the generations to come. We are all mother trees, if you will. We are all also the children and grandchildren and great-great-great-great-grandchildren of the generations that came before us. We inherit the world on a temporary basis from those ancestors, for better and for worse. And we bequeath our world, the one we are stewards of right now, for better and for worse, to the coming generations. What is our responsibility in all of this? What are we to do with our inheritance from the ancestors? And how do we fashion our bequest to the descendants in this brief time that we have here? These are, I believe, central questions of a faithful life. Being engaged in time, being engaged in generational relationship. And they're questions that I will be exploring with you this morning. They're also hard questions, weighty, ambiguous, and complicated. We must take them up in earnest from time to time. We need courage and resilience to answer them. We need beauty and joy to answer them. We need love to answer them. We need the blessings of this life, right here and right now, to take up the questions of the past and the future. So let us now sing of those blessings that teach us to be ever faithful. Number 305, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Sorry, 126.
Now is the time in our service for the sharing of joys and sorrows, those matters great and small that touch us, our families, and those we love. So I invite those who have a joy or a sorrow or concern to share to come up and light a candle and share what you wish. And if you wish to do this in silence, that's okay too.
I'm so glad that we do this every week. It reminds me, and it reminds all of us, I think, that on any given day, of any given week, of any given month, we're all carrying around so much in these little hearts of ours the size of a fist. And that we need to remember to approach one another gently, with love and tenderness, knowing that we're all survivors of something, many things. And that's what we do when we do this ritual week after week. We remember to be gentle and compassionate and loving. Remember that across all of our differences, we share the experience of human joy and suffering. And we have to hold that intention every day, and we have to take care of one another. Thank you all for your sharing. Let us open our hearts and mind to all that has been shared in joy and sorrow, in word and silence, that we may hold it in the compassion of this gathered community. And after that time of shared silence, we're going to pray together by way of one of the most cherished hymns of our UU tradition. We have not sung it in a while, Spirit of Life. Many of you know it by heart, but if you would like to be prepared with the words and music in front of you, now would be a good time to open to number 123 in the gray hymnal and have it ready. We'll remain seated as we sing reverently. With the ringing of the gong, I invite you into a time of shared and sacred silence. Let us breathe and be and feel together.
offerings this month are being shared with the, our offerings this month are being shared with the Wandering Heart Project. This is a charity based in Bridgewater and Franklin, which aims to ensure foster and homeless children of all ages in Massachusetts that they have access to clothing and other essentials. RE will be filling special love boxes with real items. You may also make specific donations by writing a check to First Parish with the Wandering Heart Project in the memo line. So I invite you to join in the offering. That's it.
So, folks who have been around more than 5 years or so, do you remember your time capsule project? David remembers, and I've learned some about it from David. And we thought that this occasion, especially as we're thinking about generations and thinking about our role in moving the world forward into the future, would be a good time to, at last, dedicate, install, and celebrate your time capsule project, which David will tell you the little bit of background about very shortly, and then I will have a brief blessing. So I turn it over to David, and actually, Ellen, if you could put the slide up now. The capsule is installed already, and it just was a more expedient way than bringing it up here and trying to all get down. That's your time capsule in the basement of the church right below us.
Okay, why does something so simple take 5 years to do? We, in our 300th anniversary celebration, which we celebrated in 2016 and into 2017, it was culminated by a reception held at the Maxwell Library of Bridgewater State University, where the archive was being put on long-term loan. Nearly 100 people attended that reception, and during the middle of the reception, somebody behind me, I don't know who, mumbled something about they should have done a time capsule. And I took that to heart, And I said, oh, that probably is easy to do, and we could do it just in a couple of months, no problem. But it took me until the next year to propose to the Parish Committee that First Parish create such a thing as a time capsule to be opened upon our 400th anniversary in 2116. The proposal was accepted with details to be worked out by myself. Unfortunately, I soon discovered that the devil really is in the details. Research into typical professionally done underground time capsule installations indicated that there were many complicated considerations for burying a time capsule, and the costs would be at least $1,500 and probably up into the thousands. Oh, I didn't mention that to the Parish Committee. However, a broader internet search located a company with an alternative. In their concept, one would simply install a time capsule in the basement joists of an existing building. Of course, one had to have such a building first, but as luck would have it, we had an ideal existing building which already had significant historical stature, and better yet, the company had a heavy-duty, hermetically sealable, hard-to-tamper-with product for sale at the affordable price of $75. Much better than $1,500. I then proceeded to gather items to place within the capsule. This proved to be another problem, as there would be little point to including copies of anything that was already in the archive. You could just go across the street and look things up in the archive. So no big surprises when the thing was opened. What would be the point of doing that? However, our archive at the Maxwell contains almost entirely ephemera, that is mostly paper documents and ledgers. So I tried to find physical objects, and I did. These included Laurie's beautiful chalice necklace, a pin of the type worn by many of us at the 2003 General Assembly in Boston. You might remember it was just a little chalice pin, or white with a chalice on it. Copies of historical themed buttons from the 300th anniversary, which we had distributed at the reception, and a few other items like that that I managed to scratch up. So I got them all together. The capsule had arrived. I was ready to go, and I looked down, and it was just kind of cold. These objects might suggest a few assumptions about us to UUs of the year 2116, but there was not much that might bring a smile to anyone, or a tear, or even a comment from the minister of that time. I needed something more. At that point, I put a call out to the congregation for volunteers to write brief messages to their brethren of the future. I supplied acid-free paper. I was really over the edge at this time. I didn't really need acid-free paper. I found it later. And after some months, collected the results, and the results were good. Those messages were what should go into the time capsule with the other objects, messages from you to UUs almost 100 years in the future. So I thought I was ready to go. But more delays. Before I actually did the sealing, people asked for an extension. Okay, I extended it 3 months, then 6, then 12. Not much more came in anyway, though. So then I did seal the capsule, ready to go. No, COVID comes along, and my heart surgery, and the capsule sat on a table in my front hall for the longest time. Finally, Quentin Jarvis and I installed the capsule in the basement of the sanctuary, up among the joists near the electrical boxes. Actually, Quentin did most of the work. Where hopefully it would sit undisturbed until 2116, when we, the congregation of First Parish, will open it. Now, you'll all be receiving a notice of that from Betty. And there is our capsule, and on the end is inscribed First Parish, open 2116. Thank you.
So David, do you have a sense of where below the floor the capsule is? Over there, okay. So I'm going to offer a blessing and invite you to participate for it. And I just want us to kind of send the flow of our energy in that direction as we do this. We dedicate this time capsule to our spiritual descendants of the next century, to the seekers of justice and the sowers of compassion, the dreamers and meaning makers, the teachers and the learners, the music makers and the worship leaders, and also the doers and the builders, the show up and set up and clean uppers, the soup makers and budget reconcilers, the newcomers and the long haulers, all people of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hand. We gift this time capsule to all of you, the descendants we can only imagine, along with our blessings of love and hope. So now let's offer up those blessings together. We'll do this call and response style. I will call out words of blessing, and then by gesturing like this, invite you to respond with a simple refrain. We offer our blessings. For a world more gentle and kind. For a world more free and more fair. For a world more united than divided. For a world more abundant than scarce. For a world more broken than whole. For the realization of the beloved community of our dreams. We offer these blessings to you, beloved children yet to be, who are both known and unknown, familiar and mysterious, held and abandoned, loved and lost, and loved ever still. May our dreams be a blessing unto you. Amen. Over this past year, you may have noticed I'm a manuscript preacher. I'm someone who has my sermon all written out, and the words are pretty carefully crafted. That's my thing. Not today. I mentioned today is a complicated day with a lot of converging observances. I'm also going to scoot out of here and get home and pack my suitcase and get on the Logan Express and then fly across the country to Portland, Oregon for our General Assembly, the first one that's being held in person and online in Portland, out of Portland, Oregon. So today I'm a little less formal in my preaching. I'm not going without paper. I like ephemera, but it's more of an outline. So last Sunday of the year, try to do something new. And I've been thinking a lot. To let you in on my process, I always ruminate and think and kind of do wool gathering, mind wandering. That's my process. I think and percolate, and then I write my sermon in a really condensed period of time after all that kind of like mad whatever happens. I do think of it as spirit. I think of it as a creative process that kind of moves through me. So I've been really ruminating a lot on this ship metaphor that's come up from time to time, and I talked about last week in my sermon. I've been thinking about how a lot of churches, including this one during the era of COVID, have kind of had to be like a ship anchored in the harbor. The seas are so rough and stormy. The way is so unclear. We have to hunker down, take care of ourselves and each other, make sure we're meeting the basic needs of ourselves, our beloveds, the people around us. And so we have found as safe a harbor as we can, and we've anchored there. But COVID is shifting and transforming. And I think we know that even though the seas are still choppy and rough, we can't afford to stay in the harbor. Even the harbor isn't safe. There are currents of fascism, currents of greed, currents of violence and injustice that need to be navigated. And so it's time for us to lift anchor and set sail again. We need to chart a course as we do that. And we need to ask ourselves, what's our destination? I've been working with that metaphor and inviting it to ruminate, as I said, and feeling really called to draw it out, to deepen it, to make more sense out of this metaphor, because that's really what I do, is just try to make sense and meaning out of what I often call this wild project of living. And it got me thinking, this process, about how we are quite literally on a boat. This blue boat home that we call Earth, as it sails not the deep ocean, but the wide universe. In essence, even though we are the Earth, we are also passengers on that blue boat. We're along for that ride. The blue boat keeps making its journey regardless of our actions. Our fare is time limited for all of us. Eventually, our ticket expires, and a new round of passengers will take our place. But even as we're on that blue boat, metaphorically speaking, I think we are all sailing on another ship. And in fact, even many ships at the same time. Ships within a ship. These are the ships of human communities, families, churches, institutions, organizations, cities, nations, and cultures. Taken together, these ships compose one big fleet of humanity. On these ships, importantly, we are not passengers, but crew members. We have work to do, roles to play. We have to steer this ship to get where we are going, all of these ships. But where are we going? This is another way of asking the big questions of faith. What is the meaning of life? What is my purpose in life? Why are we here? Why am I here? Where are we going? Our UU faith has a reputation for a lot of individual freedom to discern that direction of the ship, and to name the destination of the ships of our congregations, and that's a good thing. But I do think that we also need to pay attention to naming the destination, to being unified in a direction. And I think we do have a name for the place where we're headed. A destination that we and many other people of liberal faith describe as the beloved community that Martin Luther King Jr. made widely available in the wider culture, but that has a longer history in progressive liberal philosophy and religion. I think we're headed for the beloved community, or at least that's where we want to be headed. In my understanding, the beloved community is our destination. We don't know exactly what it will look like or feel like when at last some distant generation arrives, because to be perfectly honest with you, we're not going to make it there. We're only going to keep traveling that way. But we do know the general outlines of beloved community. We know that it is a place of love and compassion and beauty where all of these abound. We know it is a place where equity, inclusion, and justice reign, are the prevailing principles by which we live together. We know that abundance, well-being, and collective thriving abide there. Beloved community is a world in which all people practice collective thriving. And it's my view that all generations of the human family are tasked with steering all the ships in our human fleet toward the beloved community. But sometimes we fall off course. Unexpected winds blow in, those currents of war and greed and autocracy and self-interest, currents of fear and scarcity, and we get turned around and lose our way. This happens, I think, to every generation. And each new generation is tasked with calculating the coordinates of where we are now. How did we get here? Where are we? How do we get back on course? Each new generation is tasked with turning our ships around, getting them back on course toward the beloved community. How do we do that? To know where we are now, even if that's off course and lost at sea, we have to understand where we came from and how we arrived at this moment in time. And I'll tell you, in this moment in time, I feel pretty lost. I feel like so much of the world has lost our way. Where is the beloved community? And how do we set our ship towards it again? We have to engage with history and our ancestors, honestly, fearlessly, wholeheartedly, with their triumphs and their failures, their wisdom and their shortcomings. You ancestors like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, the free Black abolitionist feminist writer whose story I have often brought into our worship time this year. By engaging with the past, we discover and shape the values that we believe will lead us toward the beloved community. Welcome, young folks. It's right that you should be with us as we're talking about generations before us and all of us here together now, and generations to come much further into the future. So we have to engage with the past, but we also need to connect with our own deepest longings and regrets. That's what spiritual practice is about. That's what spiritual nourishment is about. It's about connecting with our deepest longings for life and living, not only for ourselves, but for the whole human family and beyond. Here in the present, in our own lives and communities, what do our souls and spirits most long for? How have we sometimes met those longings? And how have we often fallen short? How are we withholding the resources we need to thrive from one another and ourselves? When we are engaged with the values that emerge from our understanding of history, and when we are in touch with the conditions of living that we most long for, we can dream up new possibilities. We can dream up the beloved community. With our dreams for the future, we can set our ship to right. We can turn the world around. We can't promise that the coordinates we set will be exactly right, but we can do our best. And when future generations find that they have fallen off course, gotten turned around, lost at sea, they will have to dream new dreams to set the ships to right once more. But now it's our turn, this time, this precious time that we have here and together. So I have homework for you to do over summer vacation. I want you to do some dreaming. That's how we chart the course to the beloved community. I want you to dream for this community, this First Parish ship. Dreams for a few years from now into the future when we're here and together and this congregation looks much like it does now. And dreams for 100 years from now when, spirit willing, our First Parish descendants will open the time capsule and engage with the past and the history as we have lived it and as we have bequeathed to them. To help with your dreaming, I have a small gift for you. I've gathered up some simple stones, mostly from my pool deck. I didn't dig them in the forest, or they were delivered to my house, but but I've gathered them up with love in my heart, and I'd like you to take these stones home with you, and from time to time over the summer, just be with them, meditate with them, worry on them, but mostly dream with them. Think about what you most wish for this community and for our future, not only for ourselves, but for those folks who are going to find the time capsule. Imbue the stones with your dreams. And when we come together in September for our water communion, we will cast our dream stones into a fountain of our mingled waters. It reminds me of when I was little and I went to the mall and they had fountains and we threw pennies in with our wishes. That's what we're going to do. So after the postlude, those of you who are here in the sanctuary, please come see me. You can come up the center aisle. I really would like to say farewell to each of you as we move into the summer kind of hiatus when I'll be on vacation and study leave. And I'd like to give you these dream stones. For those of you online, I invite you to gather up any stones. There's 3 in this bag. Any stones you come across during your summer wanderings. I did 3 because I thought you could do, June, July, August, and then we'll come together in September. Let us dream our way into a new future with our UU principles and our most deeply held values as our guides. What are your dreams for this spiritual community? If there were no barriers of time or energy or health or money or conflict, what would church look like? The space and the ministries, what would be the same and what would be different? What would we hold on to and what would we let go of? What would we build and what would we take down? Who would be among us? How would we engage our neighbors and the wider community? Let these questions and more be the fodder for your imagination as we dream our way toward the beloved community, as we seek to turn the world around. And I'm told that you sing that song, Turn the World Around, quite well. It's a difficult one for you to learn, I've heard. So And it's fitting. My understanding is that Harry Belafonte learned this song in the country of Guinea during travels to Africa, and part of the message really is about each generation taking its turn to turn the world around. So now let us sing number 1074, the Teal Hymnal. May you be filled with the blessings of this covenanted community. May you carry them with you as you depart from here. May you discover the places in the world where these blessings are needed, and may you have the courage to share them. May there be an open place in your heart to receive the blessings of the people whom you meet along the way. Let us sing Amen. Traditional words to extinguish the chalice one last time for this church year. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Have a good summer, a dream-filled summer. Come see me before you go.
was so pretty. Just a reminder that the RE program has set up for everybody. Even though it's a little on the cool side, we've set up a whole beautiful table with the fixings for an ice cream sundae. So we're hoping that you will find the time to just, after you've said your goodbyes, to come down and enjoy an ice cream sundae. Okay, thank you so much. So Hadley and if you want to come around, that'd be great to help. Yeah, and Jen. Thanks.